Here's lesson 8 on arithmetic sequences. Okay, there's a lot of vocabulary that we have to really get through to be able to talk about these types of sequences. Um, in general, first thing you need to know is that a sequence is a list of numbers that may form a pattern, and each number in a sequence is going to be called a term. So you kind of just list out a bunch of numbers, and they may form a pattern, and along the way you'd have the first term, the second term, the third term, the fourth term, and so on and so forth in this pattern. So when the terms of a sequence differ by the same non-zero number, in other words, they're increasing or decreasing by the same amount every time, okay, we will call that number D, and this sequence in that case is going to be called an arithmetic sequence. And the number D is going to be called the common difference. Okay, that's kind of a bunch of, that's really important information, the arithmetic sequence and the common difference, those words, those definitions. But really what is going on here is something that you're already familiar with because we've seen this. What it's saying here is that if going from this value to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one, is increasing or decreasing by the same amount, then we have what is called an arithmetic sequence. And this number that it's increasing by, this plus 0.2 in this case, that number has a name. That number is called the common difference. It's how we move from one spot to the next in the sequence. We're adding 0.2. Alright, so now a little bit of notation. The variable a is often used to represent terms in a sequence. The variable a with a little 9 underneath it here, this a with the little 9, it's read a sub 9, like submarine goes below. Okay, a sub 9. And that means it's the ninth term in the sequence. So we have a way to kind of talk about each individual term in a sequence. We could say a sub 1, that would be the first term. A sub 2 would be the second term. So the first term in this sequence over here would be 0.2. So a sub 1, you could write it like this, a sub 1, and a sub 2, and a sub 3, and a sub 4, and a sub 5. So the first term in the sequence is 0.2, the second term is 0.4, the third term is 0.6, the fourth term is 0.8, and the fifth term is 1. Okay, and again that's read a sub. To designate any term, so if we're just talking about in general, we're looking for some term, we call that usually the nth term, right here, the nth term. If we're looking for the nth term in a sequence, we write a sub n, where the n can be any number we want it to be. So down at the bottom here, the nth term of an arithmetic sequence with a common difference d can always be found like this. A sub n is equal to a sub n minus 1 plus that common difference. So let's see what that means. Let's look over at our table. Let me erase some of this stuff here. So what does that mean? A sub n. Well, let's pick the third term. How about this one? A sub 3. Let me put those a's back on here. So the third term, a sub 3. Okay? So if I had a sub 3, that equals a sub n minus 1. Well, what is n? N was 3. So I have a sub n minus 1. So 3 minus 1. And then up here I have plus d. And that common difference was 0.2. That's what d was. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means the third term is going to equal the a sub 3 minus 1. What's 3 minus 1? That's just 2, right? So why don't I just rewrite that as 2? a sub 2 plus 0.2. So let's substitute some stuff in here. A sub 3, let's say I didn't know what a sub 3 was, okay? So the third term is equal to the second term, so 0.4 plus 0.2. And that's 0.6. And look, a sub 3 is 0.6. So what this is saying, what this equation here is saying, it says to find any term, I start with the one before it, and I add that common difference to it. And that makes a lot of sense. So if I start with any number here, I start here, I add 0.2, I get the next one. So if I'm looking for this one, I'd have to start here and add 0.2. That's how I'd get there. Okay, I know this is different and strange, but just follow along here. We'll work a lot with it tomorrow in class. Okay, how do we identify if a sequence is an arithmetic sequence or not? I guess that's the first thing we really need to know. If it's not an arithmetic sequence, then that previous equation isn't going to do us any good. So we're going to determine whether the sequence appears to be an arithmetic sequence. And if it is, we'll find the common difference and the next three terms of the sequence. Now it's important to notice these three dots right here, dot, dot, dot. That means this sequence continues to go in that direction forever. So let's see. Step 1, find the difference between successive terms. Okay, just a fancy way of saying let's find the common difference. So from 12 to 8, from 8 to 4, and from 4 to 0. So from 12 to 8, I add a negative 4, or you could say subtract 4. The same thing here. From 8 to 4, I'd be subtracting 4. And from 4 to 0, again, I'd be subtracting 4. So I'm doing the same thing every single time again. And this should look familiar to you when we were talking about linear functions. Okay, in arithmetic sequence, these are going to create lines. If we graphed them, they would definitely be linear. So let's see. So we added negative 4 to each term. So the common difference here, D, is negative 4. So how does that help me? Well, I could find the next terms if I wanted to. I could say, again, I went minus 4, minus 4, minus 4. So from 0, I would have to subtract 4, and I would get negative 4. And from negative 4, I would have to subtract 4, and I would get negative 8. And from negative 8, I would have to subtract 4, and I would get negative 12. Okay, let's see. This is a sub 1, it's the first term, a sub 2, a sub 3, a sub 4, a sub 5, a sub 6, a sub 7. I wonder what a sub 8 would be. You could probably decide real quick just by telling me, well, we're just subtracting 4 every time. But let's try to use this equation over here and figure it out. Let's see, so a sub 8 is going to equal a sub 8 minus 1 plus d, the common difference. So a sub 8 is going to equal a sub 7 plus, and that common difference was minus 4, plus a negative 4. Okay, what was a sub 7? That was negative 12. So a sub 8 is going to be negative 12 plus negative 4. And that's going to be negative 16. So a sub 8, as you may have already guessed, is going to be negative 16. And that's true. If this holds to my pattern, that would be another minus 4. So that's how you can use the equation if you wanted to. You obviously don't need to, but if you wanted to, you could use the equation to have figured out what the next three terms were. So the question then would become, what if you wanted to find a term that was really kind of far off when you didn't want to make a huge list? Like you wanted to find what the 277th term was in a sequence. Okay? So if we want to find the nth term, some term that we're not sure of an arithmetic sequence with a common difference d, so we need to know the common difference, and we need to know the first term, so a sub 1, then we have this equation that we can use. To find any term at all we need is that first term, a sub 1, and the common difference. And from there we can find whatever term we want. So here's a question. Find the 37th term of the sequence below. So it goes 5, 2, so this is a sub 1, a sub 2, a sub 3, a sub 4. Again, those just mean what position they're in. It's the first term, the second term, the third term, the fourth term, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we want to do is find the common difference. So I went from 5 to 2, I subtracted 3. I go from 2 to negative 1, again I subtract 3. And going from negative 1 to negative 4, again subtracting 3. So the common difference here is going to be negative 3. So D is negative 3. We should also determine the first term, a sub 1, of the sequence. Well, that's easy. It's the first term. It's this one right here. So a sub 1 is 5. The first term is 5. So now let's find a sub 37. Well, the one I'm looking for, this n, we're looking for a sub 37. That's going to equal a sub 1, which was 5, plus, what's n? N is right here, which is a 37. So plus 37 minus 1, and D is right here, is a negative 3. So make sure we have our parentheses. So a sub 37 is going to be 5 plus 36, 36 times a negative 3. So that's a sub 37 is going to be 5 plus, that's negative 108. And 5 plus negative 108. So a sub 37 is going to be negative 103. So the 37th term in this sequence is going to be negative 103. So it's not really too hard as far as the arithmetic goes here. It's using the formula and knowing what each piece means along the way. So again, a lot of this is just notation, notation, notation. Okay? Just make sure you kind of understand what these words mean as far as common difference, the first terms. Please write down any questions that you have on any of this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot. And we are going to play and play and play with this next time in class. Okay, there is no check your understanding. Just bring your notes and we will go over this when next time I see you. Later.